Hello, everyone. My name is Sarafi, and I'm happy to meet you all. Today, I'm going to be sitting down with one of my colleagues, the Gravekeeper Guru, also known as Keeper of Graves or Khrome. Khrome,
Hello,
thank you
everyone.
very much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. I'm the Gravekeeper Guru, and we're here to talk about some Rush, I think.
That's right. So today's video topic is going to be about Rush Duels and what that means for all of us. Because on August 8th, at the live World Championship for Duel Links, which Khrome was supposed to join me at, and then he slept through like a true friend, we got the announcement that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens World was being released on September 28th. Khrome, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the main thing that got me about their announcement is they don't seem to realize that Sevens is not the announcement people expect when they put a counter or an anniversary attached to it.
No, no,
um,
no, no. It was worse than that. They before like when the counter hit zero, the first thing they announced was that they were building a stadium, and we had to watch the entire Duel Links uh finals, best of five before we could hear about sevens.
it's a little bit like I know it's a big announcement and it's a lot of investment, but at the same time, mm, I think Konami don't really realize what people expect or want out of anniversary events. I think the only time they kind of hit it was with Bonds Beyond Time, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, regardless, Rush Duels are coming, and this is a big deal for the West. We have not had any of these cards printed. Rush Duels have existed for 2 years only in Korea and Japan.
Yeah, and it's been out for 2 years already. Like we have had several formats of Rush in other countries, and this is gonna be our first West Side we're gonna see of it. I'm excited. I'm gonna say I've been wanting to try Rush for a long while now.
I am also looking forward to Rush Duels. There are several factors that make Rush Duels different than everything else, and we're going to see those and we're going to enjoy them. Actually, let me go ahead and quickly pull up my guide to Rush Duels on my
Yes, we can
screen
start from
so
there.
that we can talk about the rules. All right, so let's go over the rules changes for Rush Duels. So the field zone for Rush Duels is very similar to Speed Duels. 3 monster zones, 3 spell and trap zones, and 1 field zone for each player. You do have an extra deck, which only has fusion monsters in it, and there is no banish zone because you cannot banish cards in Rush Duels. Now, from what do you think will be the impact of us not being able to banish cards as opposed to a regular duel?
Well, the first off is as any kind of Yu-Gi-Oh game moves along, when the graveyard becomes a resource, because we don't have another separate pile to dump those resources once they're done, they're going to be shifted elsewhere. And what we've seen, looking a little bit into the future, is the way you use and interact with this extra hand is shuffling it back into the deck. So it's a little more weirder how you manage resources in Rush Duel, especially coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh! And Speed Duel background. I'm gonna be a little bit more mindful of that.
Well, typically monsters in Rush Duels don't have graveyard effects, right?
Yeah, it's more like having stuff in the graveyard sometimes allow other cards to do things,
Mhm.
but cards in the graveyard don't do much on their own.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool.
We're
Let's see.
we're gonna pull some examples later, I imagine, as well.
Sure.
Um,
You can do whatever you want
Also,
on your side. But
yeah, also it's a little bit more streamlined, which is the whole point of Rush.
that
There
is
are
the point.
no, yeah, there's no extra piles, just deck, graveyard, extra deck, field.
Everything is supposed to feel natural and like it makes sense. That's kind of the theme of Rush Duel is does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense, let's cut it.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of things are just streamlined.
So, unlike Speed Duels, Rush Duels have 8,000 life points and a 40 to 60 card deck size. Chrome has expressed some concerns that maybe we'll get our life points cut to 4,000. I really hope not. But we will definitely have a 40 card deck at the very minimum, and we will talk about
Yeah,
why in a second.
yeah. I really hope. Like this is the thing, because there's been a discussion, and I think it comes a lot from people who don't know what Rush is. Sadly, that they're gonna do the same thing that they did with Speed Duels, which is take the Yu-Gi-Oh format and make it look like the anime, which is 4,000 life points. They cut deck sizes to make decks more consistent, so anime decks have more of a chance to have a punch instead of just fall flat. The thing is, Rush is a very quick game where you summon a lot of things all the time, where there's a lot of back and forth. So first off, 4,000 life points are gonna go by really fast, especially with an early archetype, you can say, which is psychics that pay life points to do effects. And then a smaller deck size. I don't know if you want to talk about how drawing works yet.
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay, so 40 cards, just if you could do any less than 40 cards, just I'm gonna bring it out. Games will last 4 turns or less
Mhm.
if you do that.
That's right. Now, the important thing for us is that because we have 40 cards, that does mean we will need twice as many cards as we do for speed duels to build decks. And each deck that you want will need 40 cards. It's not like you're going to use your Dark Sorcerer in your Bubble Era deck, right? There are going
Mhm.
to be some restrictions on the cards that you can reasonably use in a deck. Even if you're talking about vanillas, you still care about their attribute and you still care about their type. So,
And
good.
yeah, and there's another point to this as well. It is a 40 card deck, and Rush Duel cards, you need to think of Rush Duels as a separate game from Speed Duels and Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that you own for Speed Duels are not translatable to Rush Duels.
Oh, yes, thank you. That's a good point. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
if you own cards for Yu-Gi-Oh, unlike Speed Duels, you're not gonna get to use your old cards on this new format. It is a separate game entirely.
that's right. You can't play Orchest, and there are even though there are some cards that are reused in Rush Duels, such as Blue Eyes White Dragon, you're not going to be able to play your copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon that you got from Mokuba Kaiba in Rush Duels. They're going to give you a separate Blue Eyes White Dragon. It looks completely different. And we'll talk about the card art a little bit later. Okay.
Hmm.
Good points all around. The point that I wanted to make, which I think I make right here in this next slide, is that this deck is going to be expensive. So we have twice as many cards that we need to collect, and we're going to have at least four, if not five, characters released all at the same time, and every single one of them you're going to need 40 cards for. So one of the big questions on everyone's mind is economy. We will get to that at some point. So that's not going to be the focus right now, but that is kind of the thing that kind of makes or breaks whether this format is going to work inside of this app.
Yeah, my only guess is guess nor hope, I guess, is that they make it very cheap to enter at first.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Card differences. So there are only three types of spell cards: field spells, equipped spells, and normal spells. There are no continuous spells, there are no continuous traps, there are no counter traps, and there are no quick play spells. Um, and we also probably shouldn't expect equipped spells to come right now because they don't come for a very long time. So
Hmm.
basically, you're going to have normal spells, field spells, and normal traps. And not every deck has a field spell either.
Yeah,
Um,
from
but
my recollection of the start of the Rush Duel era, there are very few field spells available overall. It's just mostly normal and traps.
well, I think we're going to have. I think Luke uses Mountain,
Hmm.
which works basically the same as it does in the current game. And then we have Apocalypse Gear World.
Yeah, which is like a more of a kind of an archetype thing. I imagine we're gonna talk about this later, but the archetypes are not really a thing. They are, but not really.
Hmm.
In Rush Duels, the card design is very less xenophobic than Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes, and we'll We'll talk about that certainly. But for right now, let's keep going over the basics.
Hmm.
So there are no chains. If a card is activated, that card's effect resolves immediately, and then afterwards, any cards that could have been activated at the time that card was activated can still be activated during their own chain without missing timing. So, for example, if I activate Pot of Greed, and Chrome has a card that can be activated when I activate a spell card, he can activate it after Pot of Greed resolves, and it will
Hmm.
not impact Pot of Greed's activation at all. And it's not gonna. It's not gonna. It's not like the card's gonna say negate the spell. It's gonna say something different, like, "Oh, my opponent activated a spell card. I get to draw a card," or something like that. So they're completely
Yes.
independent effects. Um,
Yeah. So for Yu-Gi-Oh players that are frustrated with any current meta, this basically means that there are no negates, there are no interruptions per se. The only way you can interrupt a play is to preemptively predict it and act accordingly.
that's right. And so, for example, every monster effect that is not a continuous effect is an ignition effect. So that means there are no triggered effects, like, for example, when you summon Stratos and Stratos' effect activates immediately when it's summoned. That doesn't work in Rush Duels. It's summon, pass priority to your opponent. Then, if your opponent lets you have the priority back, then you can activate the monster's effect once per turn. So, a card like
Hmm.
Trap Hole will basically just prevent the monster's effect from ever happening. So, Trap Hole is basically like as powerful as a negate, which is why it's a legendary card.
Yes. And even as we move along, some cards end up having like Book of Moon effects, which are also very powerful.
It's funny to
So,
think of. Trap Hole actually might not be as good as we think it's going to be, just because there are so few monsters that actually have 1,000 attack points.
true.
Okay. All right. So each player begins a rush duel with 4 cards in their hand, and the player who goes first draws on their first turn, which is fantastic. I don't know if you guys were playing back in 5Ds, back in, I don't remember when they changed this. I think it was Master Rule 4 when they changed this. But when I started the game, we got to draw on the first turn, and I hate that they
Mm.
took that part away, so I'm glad that we're going back to that. Um,
Yeah, that was a. I was there when they changed it as well, and it was a weird transitional period for me as well.
mhm. There is no maximum hand size in Rush Duels, and during your draw phase, you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So that's what Chrome was alluding to earlier. If we had a 20-card deck, drawing 5 cards every turn would ruin us, and that's not the point of the game.
Yeah, and something I always emphasize here, because a lot of players coming from Yu-Gi-Oh and Speed Duels miss, is not only like you draw until you have 5 cards, you must draw until you have 5 cards. So if you have 3 cards in hand and 1 card in deck, you are losing the game on your next turn because you can only draw up to 4 cards. That's
Exactly.
specifically why I was worried about 20 cards decks in Rush, because if you draw cards at any point during the game, you just lost a whole turn to keep playing.
Yeah, but we're
So,
not we're not just assuming here. We have very strong evidence
oh yeah.
besides logic to suggest that we are getting 40 cards, and we'll cover that in a bit. All right.
Hmm.
Now, there is no standby phase or main phase 2 in Rush Duels. Once you attack, your turn ends similar to Speed Duels. You might think, why is there no standby phase? What about all the effects that trigger during the standby phase? Well, there aren't any triggered effects. Triggered effects don't exist. So there's no need for a standby phase when everything
Hmm.
is either an ignition effect for monsters, or it's a card that you have to activate in response to something as a spell or trap. Or sorry, as just a trap. Oh, and that's
Yeah.
the other thing that's important to note. You can't just activate traps for no reason. Every trap has a requirement, because I did say that you pass priority earlier, but it's not like the current game where you could just TTH any time that it's your priority. There has to be a reason for you to activate a card, and we'll
Hmm.
look at some of the Rush Duel cards. But there are cards that say things like requirement your opponent has declared an attack, or requirement your opponent has summoned a monster. Like, you can't just activate a trap for no reason like you can in Speed Duels, which is
Yeah, and I
again,
think
I think that's good.
yeah.
I think it's improves. Um, it gives you very clear playability and counter strategies, because there's a back and forth, and if you can guess what your opponent is going to be playing, then you can kind of play around all of their traps. And traps are going to be a big part of the game. And I do think that this is going to be a very healthy meta to start with because even though it's a heavy net decking type of game, a lot of the people who would post in English don't know enough about Rush Duels to really make a deck that everyone else can net deck. So
And here's the other thing as well. That it bears mentioning on the card design of Rush Duels. Not only every trap, every single card in the game has its text written as requirement effect. Even monsters have requirements, and requirements can be conditions that are met. For example, having a number of spell cards in the graveyard, having a number of monsters in your opponent's side of the field, or can be a cost. For example, sending a card from the hand to the graveyard, sending a card from the deck to the graveyard,
or both.
or both.
Like
And
Yami
if,
Ruler the Dark Layer, which requires it has both a requirement of you have to have normal summon at this turn, and it changes its battle position.
yeah, requirements is just like what you need to do and what needs to be happening for the card to be able to activate its effect. And then once you meet the requirement, the effect takes place.
Hold on, let me. I'm gonna pull up a. Well, I'll just have a card on screen. I'll have a card on screen while you're saying that, so that people can see what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Okay.
So and that is true for every card in the game. So that's what makes the game a little bit healthier and easier to manage. It's really clear when a card can be activated. There's no missing timing. There's no anything of that. It's just if the requirement can be met, you can use the card.
Uh, real quick before we continue on, I just thought about this because I thought about people who don't know enough about Rush Duels. Do you think that the big content creators are going to make Rush Duel content? Like, is Playmaker going to release a bunch of uh play-by-plays of the new Rush Duel decks, or is he just not going to bother? Do you think?
I imagine some people, like especially people who are dedicated to Duel Links, especially I forget the name of the guy who basically made the Duel Links meta and Master Duel meta
DK?
websites. DK.
I
DK is
don't think he
definitely.
even plays anymore. Well, maybe.
He's probably gonna jump into. The last I've seen of him, he basically makes reaction videos to card releases
Mm.
and stuff. So he's probably gonna make some content on what's being released in Rush Duels. I do hope, if I'm allowed here, I do have a YouTuber I kind of want to highlight because
Absolutely.
he's been doing Rush Duel content for a while, and it's very well explained, very well made. His name is Tomato Source. I'm
Okay.
going to link his page for you so you can maybe have a link or something or image of him.
Yeah, yeah. Put
Uh,
it in the chat, and I'll pull it up.
yeah, because he's been doing, for example, deck profiles based on anime characters, both old and Rush characters, character drafts and decks that are being released. He's been play testing. He's been playing the game for a while now, and I do hope. I do hope that content creators that are already in Duel Links try to slide into Rush Duel a little bit. I do hope content creators like Tomato Source gain a little bit more notoriety because of it. Because
Give me the link so I can put it up.
yeah, I'm pasting it up here. There you go. Oh,
Okay. All right, here we go. Tomato Zors, 529 subscribers, 255 videos. Oh, look, he's talking about uh, Swift Gaia and what, Six Samurai? Okay.
uh, he has another thing where he's doing
Oh, Generation Draft. I don't know what that is. Okay.
it's kind of like a progression series, but his main bulk is just
Rush Duels.
Rush Duels.
Yeah, yeah.
You
This
see, like
looks.
every third video is the regeneration draft.
Yeah, this guy looks like Davinator 1212 or whatever his name is. Another guy that I like who does like meme videos. That's funny. Okay. All right, cool. Yes. So Tomato SARS also gets my brand of approval because Rush Duels are difficult to talk about in the West. So if this guy has been dedicated to Rush Duels for this long, he must know his stuff and he must really be passionate about it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back to the discussion. A player can normal summon as many times as they like during their turn on a rush duel, because you start with 5 cards in your hand, and then you draw 5 cards each turn. If you have 0 cards in your hand, it is probably optimal to use as many cards from your hand as possible each turn. Even if you can't activate a spell card during your opponent's turn, you can still set it face down if you can't use it this turn, so that you can still use it next turn, just like if a normal spell card. But you also get to draw a card. Like if I had uh, Dragon's Pressure in my hand, I couldn't activate it, but if I set it face down, then I would draw one additional card because I would have one fewer card in my hand at the start of my turn.
Hmm. And I want to point this out as well. The side effect of this, the way that this interaction works, is a lot of cards, legend cards specifically, that come from Yu-Gi-Oh, become a little bit of a newbie trap. For instance, Pot of Greed is really good in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in Rush Duels, uh, drawing the cards without any discarding or being able to drop some unwanted cards into the graveyard makes it so you may end up with cards in your hand, and you kind of don't want that in Rush. You want to end up as close to zero as possible. That's why, for example, while Pot of Greed sees almost zero play, Graceful Charity sees a lot of play because it gives you the chance to dump the cards that you're definitely not going to use
Hmm.
this turn.
That's true. I would also probably say that Graceful Charity sees more play than Pot of Greed because they directly compete with each other, and Graceful
Yeah,
Charity is
that
just
as
the
well.
better card. So Chrome is skipping ahead a little bit. There is a rule in Speed Duels called Legend, and what Legend
Hmm.
cards are is each type of legend card, monster, spell, and trap, is a limit 1 card that also restricts you from playing other legend cards of the same type. So if you have Pot of Greed, you can't use any other legend spell. And so, for the reasons that Crumb mentioned, people tend to prefer Graceful Charity because they can only play one or the other, and Graceful Charity is the better card both for rush duels and overall. Um,
Hmm.
and then there are
And
also legend monsters and legend traps. Trap Hole is a legendary card, as I mentioned earlier, and then Jinzo is an example of a legendary monster.
yeah, most legend cards are the imports from regular Yu-Gi-Oh, so you're gonna see a lot of very recognizable faces there.
All right. So with 8,000 life points and the ability to set 3 monsters in defense each turn, as well as the ability to draw 5 cards, OTKs are pretty rare, especially in the early games, early eras of Rush Duels. You guys should all feel like this is a chance to play like backyard Yu-Gi-Oh, where you're just tribute summoning, having a good time, pulling out your biggest monster, and then just like beating over your opponent's monster, maybe chipping at their life points a little bit. Then you pass to your opponent, and then they do the same thing to you until someone runs out of life points. And I mean, that's what it's all about, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to this.
Hmm. The most fun thing I've noticed about Rush Duels is that because there are no quick plays or stuff like that, and all effects resolve, and you draw 5 cards every turn, what ends up happening, um, even in the early eras of Rush, is you use all of your resources to build this very scary board, but then your opponent builds their own board and breaks yours. But then you draw 5 cards and you do that to them. So there's a lot of back and forth and destruction, and it feels like what the anime looked like when you were a kid.
Hmm. That's right.
There is no transition, and that is what I think is the best thing that Rush Duels did as a card game design. Is that Yu-Gi-Oh! You watch the anime during the the Duel Monsters and GX era, and then you go to play the game, and they're very different. They feel very different to watch and to play in the anime and the game. Rush Duels feel the same. Feels like you're playing the anime. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's check a few other things here. So there are only 3 types of summoning methods other than just playing a level 1 to 4 monster from your hand in Rush Duels. You could tribute summon, you could fusion summon, and you can maximum summon. So there are no synchro monsters, there are no tuner monsters, there are no Xyz monsters, there are no link monsters, there are no ritual monsters, and there are no pendulum monsters in Rush Duels. Um, and we're also probably not going to get fusion monsters for a very long time because fusions didn't come until season two and really late season two of sevens. Uh,
Hmm.
it's also important to note that continuous spell cards do not exist in Rush Duels, so even if they added other cards like Synchro monsters or Xyz monsters, there's really not a basis for a monster to be treated as a continuous spell card, so Pendulum is basically completely incompatible with Rush Duels.
Which, if you're like, I am a little bit of a pendulum hater out of this, so this is good news for me.
All right, what is a maximum summon? Let's talk about that. So a maximum monster is a monster that has two modes, a regular mode and a maximum mode. A maximum monster is only considered to be in maximum mode if it is maximum summoned. You can maximum summon a monster from your hand while you possess all three cards needed to do so, and when you maximum summon, you send all other cards you control, all other monsters you control to the graveyard automatically. So, Supreme Machine Magnum Overlord has three like parts to it. The Supreme I can't pronounce this card.
It is a little bit of a mouthful.
Supreme
Uh,
Machine Magnum Overlord L, Supreme Machine Magnum Overlord, and Supreme Machine Magnum Overlord R. And the artwork is different, the levels are different, the stats are different. It's kind of hard for you to see the picture, but they are three different cards that are meant to like be one full card art, which is actually pretty cool. I really like
mm,
the visual design of Maximum Monsters.
I do love that. It makes me feel like this is a mini Exodia,
Hmm.
which for me is always good. I love when card art does this, makes like a pen, and the fact they made it a mechanic is amazing
Yes.
for me.
So let's talk about Maximum Monsters. So Maximum Monsters have pretty bad stats, but when you maximum summon them, they get the maximum attack. And a maximum monster is just like a link monster. It can't be switched to defense mode because if they switch it to defense mode, then you would lose the card art. I love that. I love that by the way that Konami has basically been painted into a corner by the fact that they use tapping to like represent defense position, and so now that they have all these cards that are so focused on the artwork, like uh, links and maximum monsters, I just have to say that the defense position doesn't exist.
Yes. And another thing to maximum monsters, they, even though they're three cards,
While they're on the field, they are treated as one monster. They have
yes,
three different effects, and they can only attack one time.
but they can use all three effects per turn, which is unique.
It
Uh,
is. Oh,
in Rush Duels, each monster only has the one effect. It's only now 2 years later that we're seeing monsters that kind of have a second effect, but not really.
mhm. Like an effect that can activate in the hand, and then an effect that activates on the field.
Yes, I think if you want to name drop that, there is a spellcaster monster that was revealed recently that if certain conditions are met, you can special summon him from the hand, and then he has an effect on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Um,
that's as far as they go.
exactly. Yeah, and for the most part, it's just for the most part, monsters have either an ignition effect, a continuous effect, or a multi effect, and that's a later slide. We'll get to that. But um, but yeah, maximum monsters, in theory, they're kind of good, especially since like it's an Exodia, so you have to draw three cards, and they all have to be the same, like different cards. Oh well, I'm drawing five cards a turn. This would be like pretty easy to do. You might think that. Chrome and I have actually playtested this. It is terrible.
Yeah, no. Most decks that play maximum after it's released have done so because of the effects of the individual pieces. Very few cards rely on maximum summoning because it's not consistent enough. Um, Another benefit that maximum summons have, for instance, is the high attacks. Because, for example, why would someone play Blue Eyes White Dragon? Well, because a 3K attack on a single monster in Rush is a lot, and maximums go over 4K sometimes. But even with that advantage, there still has to be a maximum monster that is worth all that investment.
Well, the big problem with maximum monsters is, like I said before, you might think it's pretty easy to draw all three pieces when you can draw 5 cards each turn. But what actually happens is they turn into bricks because you want to empty your hand every single turn. And if you're not playing your maximum card because you want to hold it in your hand so that you can maximum summon,
Hmm.
well, now there's a card that you can't draw next turn. So if you end up with 2 pieces in your hand, you're waiting for the third, that means you're drawing 3 cards every turn while your opponent's drawing 5. And that actually really hurts you. Even if you get the card in like 2 turns, that's 2 turns where your opponent is 4 cards ahead of you.
Yeah, and I also wanna shout out to my Tomato Source a little bit here. I don't remember the specific video, but he has tried playing maximum decks, and I remember specifically he was playing a maximum deck and he activated a card effect, which he could discard 1 card from his hand to draw 2 cards. He had 2 pieces of the maximum in hand, but he didn't trust that he'll draw the third, so he discarded one of the maximum pieces and drew the third. That
Oh,
happens a lot with maximum monsters.
that's so rough. Rip.
It
Press
is.
F.
He was very mad about it.
All right. Let's see here. You got to believe in the heart of the cards. If you don't believe in the heart of the cards, you deserve it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Here we go with the monster effects. So I'm gonna pull this up a little bit closer. This is Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, and this is the alternate art for it. So as you can
Mhm.
see, you've got send the top card from your deck to the graveyard. You can see that's a requirement. It says requirement. So to activate Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius' effect, you send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and now its effect activates. It says, this turn, if this card destroyed a monster by battle, it can make a second attack during that battle phase. So, Rush Duel monsters have one of 3 effects. Either ignition effects, which work just like they did in Duel Links, continuous effects, which again work just like they do in Duel Links, or multi-choice effects, which I think are only on fusion monsters.
Yeah, the ones I've seen are only fusion monsters or big boss monsters.
Mhm. Multi-choice effects are ignition effects that allow you to choose one option from a list, and then you just can't activate the effect again. All ignition and multi-choice effects in Rush Duel are a soft once per turn without needing to explicitly state so on each card. It's once per turn for every card, and you know so because it's a rush card. You can see the artwork is completely different. The level is like a little circle instead of us needing to count stars. But by the way, huge upgrade, Konami. Thank you so much that I don't
I
have to
was
count this number of stars to know what the level is.
I was so happy when I saw this because there's another thing that's implicit here. They haven't done anything with it yet, but if this is going beyond what's been released so far. Because there is no little stars on the card, they could technically do cards that go above 12 levels. They haven't done some yet.
Oh,
They haven't
okay.
done so yet. But with this card design, the level is a lot more flexible.
That's
Just
true,
want to point that out.
and because we don't have to worry about Xyz summoning or not link summoning, Xyz summoning or synchro summoning. Yeah, you could easily go to like level 15 or something if you really wanted to. Um,
That'll be really fun.
yep. Um, okay. I also want to say we've been talking about rush duels, but let me talk about sevens really quick because we have an actual card here. The thing that I love about sevens more than anything is the ridiculous over the top summoning chance.
Oh
Because
yeah.
uh Luke, when he summons multi-strike Dragon Regis, he says,
7 stars collide to burst into a supernova! You're not ready for this! You're so not ready for this! I say it twice because this monster strikes twice as hard! Rise into the light! Multi-strike Dragon Dragon! This duel is more than over!
7 stars collide to burst into a supernova, and he's referencing the level of his monster because it's 7 stars, which is so great. Um,
It is. Here's the thing. Sevens is structured and paced and written as kids having fun,
mhm, it
and
is.
you get the main character himself. Even when duels have quote unquote high stakes, you can see that he's most likely just having fun and like being a chill guy. While everyone is being over dramatic and yelling, like, "How could you do this?" Like, Oh, by the way, that was a cool combo.
Yep,
Like, uh, and because of that, everyone goes very over the top because they're just kids having fun. It's amazing.
it is, and I cannot wait for it. I am so hyped because some of the best, genuinely, anime content that we've gotten has been the continuation of these stories. That I really am invested in the Duel Links storyline for Arc 5. I really want to see where they're going with it. I'm really hoping they do something like that with Sevens.
I wonder if they're gonna have the Sevens cast. Into I'm going into speculation territory about Duel Links. Uh, I wonder if they're gonna have the Sevens cast interact with the other characters, and if so, will the other characters have rush skills, or is it gonna be? eh, I don't know, but it's gonna
Well,
be fun regardless.
that's going to be a whole other section. We will get there.
Yeah,
That's going to
no,
be like another 30-minute discussion that we're going to have. I hope you're here for the long haul, Chrome. We got a lot to
no,
talk about.
there's a lot to talk about with this. But yeah, I'm just happy to imagine Luke interacting with the likes of Colin, Yusei, Yubel, the actual edge lords of Yu-Gi-Oh! Past.
Oh yeah, I know. I want to see Roa calling himself the king, and Jack Atlas is like, "Excuse me."
Oh, I want to see Jack. Let's beat Roba so bad.
All right, okay. So Chrome, being the jerk that he is, talked about legend cards like 5 slides ahead of it. But here you go. So this
My
is what a
bad.
legend card looks like. So you can see Blue Eyes White Dragon looks completely different. It says legend up here at the top. It's got the cute little star symbol here. It says the same thing down here, but doesn't matter. You cannot use your real Blue Eyes card for Rush Duels. You have to unlock another UR, which will probably be in a box. So Blue Eyes White Dragon for the first time will be an ultra rare in a box. And well, actually,
And for the first time ever,
no,
it's going to be limited to
they'll
one.
probably be bundles. That makes the most sense, right? Because that's what they've been doing with their limit one cards.
I imagine there will be some bundles with because legend cards being in packs will be so bad
They would.
because pulling multiple will because here's the thing. There is a ban list in Rush Duels currently. More like a limited list because so far in the history of the game, no cards have ever been banned. But legend cards by design are limited to one. So pulling multiple copies in a game where trading isn't a thing uh, will just feel really bad. So they need to either be bundles, character unlock some rewards, stuff like that.
I don't want
But
character unlocks to be legendary cards. I want the character unlocks to be like cards from their decks. Like, okay, give us Otis, and Otis's unlocks are literally all legend cards.
I mean, Otis does play Blue Eyes in episode 1, so it makes sense.
Oh, he plays Summon Skull too. That's the Summon Skull beatdown that I was referencing the other day.
Oh my god, that'll be fantastic. Okay, just give Otis all the legends.
Yeah. No, he plays
Everyone,
it's a much longer duel, and like he has like literally like 4 different cards that only work with Summon Skull. It's so great.
wait, I just thought, okay, I had another thought. I'm gonna save it for later. Um, but yeah, another thing I want to point out here, we are going off of the assumption because when Rush Duel was released, you can only have one legend card in your whole deck.
Hmm.
But the whole rule has changed that you can have one for each type. We are under the assumption that because when they released pendulums, and this is Serafi pointed it out to me specifically, um, if we're going by the assumption that when they released pendulums on Duel Links, it was on Master Rule 5, not 4, that they're gonna just release legend cards with the one monster, one spell, one trap, which will make the most sense, to be honest.
And for people who have no idea what he's talking about, when Arc 5 first came out, the rule was, like you could see in the anime, that you could pendulum summon as many times as you wanted from your extra deck. And then they changed that with Master Rule 4 to where you could
Hmm.
only pendulum summon to a zone that a link monster pointed to. And actually, you could only summon from the extra deck to the zone that the link monster pointed to. So it was or to the extra monster zone, and that ruined Synchro Xyz and Fusion decks. So then they put out Master Rule 5 to change it so that
Yeah,
only pendulum players got screwed by this.
yeah. Only pendulums are stuck there,
Mhm.
and also when moving from Master Rule 3 to Master Rule 4, pendulums stop being their own zones.
Yeah.
They were
Oh, yeah.
they were shuffled back into the
Rip.
spell and trap card zone.
That was a bad change. I mean, okay,
Which,
to be fair, they could never have made Valence. They could never have made Valence if pendulum zones were their own thing. So fair enough. I like Valence. I like how they've changed Valence and made use of the fact that they were actually like pendulum spell and trap zones. But that took them years.
yeah. No, I mean, again, I'm a pendulum hater. I think it was a bad design choice, a badly designed mechanic from the outset. But going back to Rush Duels,
Well, hold
basically
on,
what
hold on.
what we're
I've been waiting on this. So before
okay,
before we talk about anything else, I just want to take a second to say I love the artwork for Rush Duels now, and we can actually clearly
yeah.
see it with these cards right here. Look at Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity looks so good. There's so much color with this full artwork. And
And I, I'm going to give you another artwork in a second here.
okay,
Oh, it's another. Sorry, it's another Reddit link. I didn't realize
give
this,
me give
but
me the give me the image. Give me the image link. I can put it on the screen. Ah, there we go.
this is another thing that Rush does a lot, and I'm so happy for it because I've been waiting for this for years. Pokemon has done this for decades now. Full art monsters has showed the monsters breaking the barrier of the card frame.
That looks
That is
amazing.
so cool. Like Rush Duels cards are so collectible physically just because of this.
They need to give it to us. They need to print these in English already. I was hoping. I was genuinely hoping that this was going to be the year like when they had that big countdown. I was like, okay, they could be Master Rule 6, but hopefully it is that Rush Duels are getting Western release. And they're like, no, we're just putting it in Duel Links. Like, come on, man.
Just print it. I want to have this card and be able to read it. Like, and they do this, the full art cards, they do this for a lot of monsters. There are some maximum monsters that are full art that look
Oh, I
fantastic.
bet. Oh man.
Uh, because you can actually put the cards side by side and you
Hmm.
see a whole image formed. Uh,
That just makes me mad
Again,
that you can't play.
yeah, it's just like the Rush Duel. The best thing Rush Duels do is to redesign the card frames, which, in my opinion, Yu-Gi-Oh card frames need an update so badly, and Rush Duels kind of point that out in the worst way possible,
Mhm.
which
All
is
right.
by comparison.
Let's see. Okay. A few other real quick things. Flip summoning is not a unique mechanic. There are no flip effects. Tributing a monster is exclusive to tribute summoning. Cards that send a monster to the graveyard simply state they are sending a monster to the graveyard. Discarding no longer exists. Cards that require sending a card from the hand to the graveyard say sending a hard card from the hand to the graveyard. Yeah, it's all just exactly what you would expect. There's none of this like unintuitive discarding for cost versus discarding for effects. Like, oh, why can't my Dark Worlds work with these cards? Well, because they were written
Yeah,
so that they wouldn't work with Dark World. Like,
and again, it removes Rush Duel is trying to be simple, so it removes a lot of the lawyer talk
mhm.
from Yu-Gi-Oh in general.
You can't miss
If
timing. You can't miss time. Oh, I hate I
mistiming
hate
is
missing
not a
timing
thing.
so much.
And the other thing is, there is no, for example, if you interact with your cards, your opponent's cards, it's destroy. If you're sending for cost, you're sending for cost. There is no distinction.
Hmm.
Like there is no, oh, but do you send? Do you destroy? Do you attach? No, no, no. You destroy an opponent's card. That's it. Like there is no, oh, I'm immune to destruction, but not to sending. That is not a thing in Rush Duels.
Yep.
So they simplified a lot of the interactions to be easier to pick up. There is not gonna be uh, whole essays about single card rulings on Rush Duels if they keep the good work they've been doing with the format so far.
Yep. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the characters. So
Mm.
I have the first slide up here. Let me just go there. So there are four main characters in Sevens, and all four of them see a lot of dueling play, like much more than any of the other animes. Um,
For instance, the girl actually gets to play well.
She does, and she wins a lot of games actually. I think actually that Roman is the only female protagonist who actually beats the main character.
I'm trying to prove you wrong, but I have no memory of that ever happening in my head, so no.
Yeah, Taya didn't
I
beat
think
Yugi. Alexis didn't beat Jaden. Akiza never beat Yusei. Uh, oh, Zuzu beat Yuya in episode 2. Never mind.
I do think, well, Zuzu, and I do think before her, the closest we ever got was Rebecca, which is a filler character
That
in
doesn't. Yeah,
DM.
that doesn't care. That doesn't count at all. I
So
reject. I
no.
reject that outright. And the by the way, the only reason that Zuzu won was because Yuya literally doesn't know how pendulum summoning works, which is it's a funny episode. I will admit that it's a funny episode watching him struggle with his own mechanic. It's like read your cards.
Good to see that the conflict of reading cards translates into the anime. Art
He,
imitates real life.
pendulum summoning is so complicated. Not even the guy who created it can figure it out. But
But yeah,
um,
basically, the four main characters, uh, they're gonna be important because all of them in the real game not so much, but we expect that for Duel Links, all of their aces are gonna be really important.
that's right. And let's pull up the leaks here, and we can very easily
Hmm.
look at the other cards. Um,
Like, and I'm going to get a little of ourselves here, but
Oh, this is BS. I have a wired Ethernet connection with 300 megabits per second download. DLM down, or is Reddit just screwing me over? I don't know what's going on. Okay, so the first card, actually, we have the cards down here. Yep. Okay. All right. The first card that we're gonna talk about is Seven's Road Magician, which
with,
is Yuga's ace monster.
I'm gonna be completely honest. One of my favorite cards so far in the game. I
Really?
love this little goofy. Yeah, I love this little goofy guy, and I've been playing a lot of variants of decks that play him,
Mhm.
and he's really fun.
So Seven's Road Magician is a spellcaster, which and the types are very important. So Khrome mentioned earlier that there's not really archetypes in Rush Duels, and there definitely won't be for the start. They did add some archetypes later on, but that was after Go Rush, so we shouldn't expect that for another year. Um,
Hmm.
but for the most part, in the early Rush format, we are going to expect to see decks organized by type. So Seven's Road Magician is kind of the boss of the spellcaster monsters. Level 7, 2100 attack points, 1500 defense points. And this is kind of a theme in Rush Duels. You have a lot of tribute summoning dependency, but even the tribute summoned monsters have bad stats.
Yeah, I'm gonna point this out. Uh, uh, Taking the advantage here, levels in Rush matter in a lot of ways. One of them is attack points. So level 4 monsters, especially at the start, and this is being kept consistent for the years to come. Level 4 monsters rarely go over the 1500 attack stat, for instance. And level 7 monsters do not go over the 2500 stats. If you want to go over that, you need to get higher level monsters, and this is an example for level 7 2100 in regular Yu-Gi-Oh. This is kind of bad.
Oh, you don't like Kyozanru?
Also, Flame. It wasn't Wingman also level 7,
Flame Wingman is level 6.
level 6. Okay, then
Um,
I retract this.
yes, but uh, so it's got 2100 attack points, 1500 defense points, and its effect is send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and then this card gains attack equal to the number of attributes in your graveyard times 300 until the end of the turn. Now there are only,
Mhm.
even though the card is called Seven's Road Magician, and it is the Sevens anime with a dual disc shaped like the number 7, and there's a focus on all the 7 stuff. For some reason, they did not print the 7th attribute in Rush Duels. So
Yeah, they tried to keep that. Just make up a new attribute. Really?
yeah, they made up so many new types they didn't bother making a 7th attribute. So there are no
Before it
divine
says divine.
cards
Yeah.
in Rush Duels. So
Before anyone says divine, there is no Egyptians in in Rush Duels.
yeah, no.
Uh,
This is Japan only.
yeah.
So so 3,900 attack points. That's what we're looking at here. If you have all 6 attributes in your graveyard, and the card that is sent to the graveyard as a requirement is considered. So if you mill a
Yeah.
spellcaster, and it's a different attribute that the card's in your graveyard, then it will also be added. And
And
this
here's
is
the
a
thing.
nice amount of attack points. Don't get me wrong, but this is kind of the restriction, right? Is that you get this boost of attack points and then it ends, and then you pass turn, and now it's your opponent's turn, and your 7/0 magician has no protection, and it's only got 2,100 attack points. So even against a level 6 monster, there are some level 6 monsters that can beat this, like Fire Dragon.
Yeah. The main thing of Seven's Road and the role he plays in the early game is that we're gonna see the other ace monsters in a second.
Mhm.
But Seven's Road is a very easily summonable monster that, if you played it right, can really beat over anything. So it's a very in the early game and even past this, its role is kind of like spot removal.
And
Like if
that's
you're
the best part about Rush Duels, by the way, is that it's just every deck is beat down. It doesn't it doesn't
yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter like if you're playing, ooh, I'm playing Psychic so that I can swarm the board, or ooh, I'm playing Yami Ruler so that I can control it. No. The goal is beat down with the biggest monster you have, and it feels great.
So for example, let's go to the next ace, and I'm gonna compare the two to show how they fulfill different roles, even though one is considered to be stronger, especially at the start,
Yes, sir. 1 second.
which is Luke's ace.
Oh, we've already talked about this card, by the way.
Yeah, we already talked about multi-strike Dragon Dragias. Same cost, send the top card of the deck to the graveyard, and this turn, if it destroys a monster by battle, it can make a second attack. So this card on a board of 3 monsters is really powerful, because if your opponent sets 3 monsters and you have 3 monsters, these cards allow you to still beat over the board and make a direct attack into the opponent's life points, which is difficult.
By the way, Luke does have 2 other dragons that do the same thing. So if you manage to summon all 3 of them, then you can have 3 dragons with 2,500 attack points each that all have the effect of, if this monster destroys a monster in battle, you can attack again. So you can destroy 3 monsters and then attack directly 3 times.
Hmm. And the thing is, Multi-Strike is going to be one of the most powerful cards of the game for a while. So my recommendation to anyone watching this: invest in Multi-Strike and Seven's Road, because they're going to be relevant for a long time.
Yeah, and
Because
it's not just the effects of the monsters. The effects of the monsters are important, but spellcasters and dragons also have spell and trap removal that is free, which is pretty
Mhm.
unfair, honestly.
It is pretty unfair. A little bit of spoilers for the meta if it resolves the same way in the real life game. When Rush Duel was released, the best deck was Spellcaster Dragon. So combining the two. Uh, when right now, 2 years later after release, Spellcaster Dragon is considered tier 2.
Yep.
The deck hasn't gone away. So invest in these, and specifically spellcasters for the card you're pointing at right now, Dark Revelation.
Yeah, Dark Revelation. This card is insane. So remember that there is no main phase 2. So there's a trap card called Dark Revelation, which is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, if you have at least 4 spellcaster type monsters in your graveyard, you can shuffle them into your deck and then destroy all attack position monsters on your opponent's field. And this is not restricted in any way. So it's a mirror force with a bit of a requirement, a bit of a pretty high requirement actually of having 4 monsters in your graveyard, but you can run 3 of them, and it's not searchable, but you're drawing 5 cards. That's the other thing you need to understand. Uh, there's not a whole lot of searching that happens in Rush Duels. So you're kind of flying
Mm.
by the seat of your pants every time, which it does make the games feel a lot different every time. So that's another thing that's going to be pretty cool, is that you're not going to be seeing people go like, okay, well, I normal summon a Destiny hero, now I have Malicious in my graveyard, now I can summon another Malicious, and then I'm going to activate Polymerization and bring out Sunrise, and then I get to draw Miracle Fusion, and I can play Miracle Fusion
Hmm.
and get another Sunrise. Every single game, that's not how it's going to happen. You are literally like pulling the slots every turn for 5 cards. Like, oh come on, I need this one. I need this one.
That is also a reason as to why FTKs and OTKs in this game is really hard to do. But what I was going to say before, like if you compare Dragias and Seven's Road, the difference there is Dragias removes a lot of things from the field. But if the opponent has a blue eyes, there's nothing that Dragias can do. Seven's Road can remove a big threat from the field
Mhm.
because it can boost itself really high, really fast. And spellcasters specifically have a lot of support to raise attack points. So that is the difference between the two. They are kind of like opposing forces in a way, and because of that, they're still going to be relevant, and they're going to be relevant being played together.
Mhm. And then you
Again,
play the Apocalypse card to nuke them both.
yeah, and that's the funnest part. Even if these two monsters are super powerful, flood your board, they're so frail.
They are. There's no negates. There's no protection. Like, yeah, okay, I can Dark Revelation, but I can only do that when you attack. So what if I destroyed Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius with an effect? Then I can just like, okay, now your ace monster is gone. What are you gonna do about it? So yeah, it is really exciting that we have these cool cards that can actually like turn a game around, and that's really what the focus is. The focus is when this monster hits the board, it should be able to make a high impact on your board this turn, and then you
Hmm.
pass to your opponent and it gets destroyed, and you're back to square one. But there's that back and forth. There's that feeling that you're always going to make a comeback every single game. All right, now that Khrome has gotten a chance to talk about the meta, let's talk about my monster that I'm excited about. Prima Gitarna, the Shining Superstar.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yes!
the only thing I had to say is like when the game first released, this was the quote unquote weakest of the main cards.
I don't even want to
But
hear it.
now, because of skills, I think it's gonna rival the others
I'm looking
easily.
forward to it. So, Prima Gitarna, the Shining Superstar, has an insane effect. It's a level 7 light psychic monster, and its requirement is you pay 1,000 life points, and the effect says all face-up monsters on your field gain attack equal to the number of monsters on your opponent's field times 300 until the end of the turn. And this is a card that feels the most like a Rush Duel card to me, because it focuses on I can summon 5 monsters in a single turn. I'm summoning 2 monsters, then I tribute both those monsters to tribute summon a level 7, then I need 2 other monsters out. So I'm using 4 cards from my 5-card hand this turn that I just drew, and I can normal summon all of them because I'm playing Rush Duels. And then
Hmm.
the effect is only good because my opponent is also able to summon 3 monsters every single turn. So this is like the epitome of a card that you would never see in the other game. You would never see this card in the other game. To put Prima Gitarna the Shining Superstar in the real Duel Links game would require you to have it have an effect to special summon itself, and then like put it in an archetype where you could special summon multiple monsters from your hand at the same time, and then like you'd probably have to give your opponent tokens or something.
Yeah, kind of like the plant decks.
Exactly. Like this is a card that just does not work in the other game, but in this game it's so cool because it sounds like a lot. You're paying 1,000 life points. That's a lot of life points. But you're gaining 900 attack points on 3 monsters. That's 2,700 attack point boost for 1,000 life points. And
And it's worth mentioning that psychic monsters really like having low life points. So
I
this
was
is this
I was about to
requirement.
say that, Chrome. Thank you very
Sorry.
much for I said this was my segment.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All
Sorry.
right, it's fine. So yes, so Roman Cassidy is really cool. She's probably like the the best female duelist we've ever seen. Um, she feels like her archetype really reflects her personality. Like all of her characters are in a band. They're not just psychic monsters that pay a lot of life points. They're all in a band, and she's in a band too. So um, and she uses they have to give her the dual guitar. There's no way that they're going to give her a
Yeah,
regular
no,
dual disc.
they're gonna give her the dual guitar.
I am so hyped for her to have the dual guitar in her sprite. Um, so uh, obviously this card is only really good if you have piercing or if you have um, your opponent's monsters are all in attack position, but your opponent can't change their monster's battle position after they attack. So this is a card that you're going to want to play on like turn 3 or turn 4. And it's a card that's not really that good to open, and it's a card that's not really that good if you don't draw it. But there's a skill that we're seeing, which is add Prima Guitar the Shining Superstar to your hand. The skill can only be used once per duel. So um, if they print a skill like this, and there's no telling what these skills are going to look like when they actually come to the game, but if there is a skill that legitimately lets you just draw Prima Guitar in addition to your other 5 cards whenever you need it, that's going to feel amazing.
Hmm. It's I think Prima, like I said, Prima Eterna is going to be the most benefited from skills right now, and I am really hoping to see her make an impact on the meta as soon as the game releases. Even then, it's gonna be a really fun deck to play.
Mm-hmm. I'm hyped. All right, and then we have Yami Ruler the Dark Delirium. I know you're excited for this card. I'll let you have this one.
Yeah. So okay, if Prima Eterna is the card that is going to be the most fun to play, Yami Ruler is going to be the card that's going to be the least fun to play against. Here's the thing. Rush Duels doesn't do
Hold on.
stun.
Before you go into it, tell them what the
Yeah,
card does because they can't see it.
yeah, okay. So what does Yami Ruler does? During the turn, first off, it's level 8, 25 attack, 25 defense.
And it's a Dark
And
Warrior.
it's a Dark Warrior. And during the turn you normal summon this card, change its battle position. That is a requirement. And the effect is until the end of the opponent's next turn, while this card is face up, neither player contributes summon level 7 or higher monsters. Which basically means, remember what I said before about levels. A level 7 monster will never surpass 2500 attack. So if you play him by himself, you essentially have a 2500 defense wall, and your opponent cannot summon monsters that can go over that wall. You lock your opponent into summoning weaker monsters that you can later run over, if you will. And this is good for a multitude of reasons. It's not only because it's a stun tactic, it is a way to keep level 7 monsters in your opponent's hand to stop them from drawing more cards on the next turn.
That's a good point.
That is one side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And depending, I don't know, I hope they don't, but they could. Another early field spell card is I keep forgetting the name, the prison one.
Yeah, I got it. I got you. It's a cell block.
Cell
Or
block.
no, yeah,
There you go.
Prison
So
Island Cell Block 5 and 6, which is a field spell that says, while this card is face up on the field, neither player contributes summon level 5 or level 6 monsters. This is used by Mindy, and I believe Mindy is the character that's going to be our October unlock, unless they're really just going to give us 5 characters in September. So either she's going to be in September or she's going to be in October. This is probably not one of her first cards because she uses this deck a little bit later, but this is a
Mhm.
card that we would like to see. This is going to be like when the Gore finally gets Dino Wrestler support. This is going to be what we're going to see for Mindy, and we still haven't gotten Dino Wrestlers, man. Come on.
And here's the thing: when you pair this card with the Yami Ruler, it is the closest thing Rush has to an early stun game, which can be really frustrating to play against because it locks the player from normal summoning level 5 or higher monsters.
And not only
That
does that,
said,
let
yeah, go
me
ahead.
add something important here. Not only does that keep cards in your hand, but actually, even more than that, a lot of the level 4 monsters that you have, you're depending on tribute summoning to get them off the field.
Hmm.
It's like there are going to be people who play cards like Strange Cat, which is a 0 attack, 1400 defense monster, not all that useful. It's intended to be tribute fodder. And if you can't tribute summon and you have to play that card to get it out of your hand so you can draw more cards, that's a dead card on your field.
Hmm. The thing is, and this is a theme, why I want to highlight this duo. Both these cards specifically say tribute summon. So there are ways of circumventing this. You can turn Yami Ruler face down defense position, and its effect is not lingering. It only works if Yami Ruler is still face up. Uh, and again, there's no flip effect. There is no when this card is summoned. It says when this card is normal summon, so flipping it face up will not trigger the effect again. So there are ways to circumvent this. It's not a complete stun, but Yami Ruler is going to be the face of a lot of even later on is going to be the face of a lot of control strategies as we move on.
I want to also
He,
add here.
mhm.
This is important. I mentioned how we have a lot of types, that type focused decks, and you mentioned how there are a lot of cards that are throwbacks to old decks, and we have seen that. We have seen Blue Eyes, Dark Magician. There is a Utopia deck.
Mhm.
There is Odd Eyes and Red Eyes. But weirdly enough, and I cannot for the life of me understand this, there are no hero cards in Rush Duels. So
I am so confused by that as well.
yeah, you would think that like if they were gonna do a reprint, like a series where they reprinted cards, that heroes would be at the top of the list, but they're not. There's zero hero cards. So this is what you play when you want to play Warriors, and Warrior is a pretty popular deck with people.
Hmm. It is even confusing because one of the stronger warrior decks is a control stun deck right now in the game. So it's a little bit confusing. My only guess is that because the game was aimed at Japan only, they went for the Japan popular cards. And we often forget Utopia is really beloved in Japan.
Well, okay,
People,
hold on. I can understand that, but why isn't Kite's deck getting reprinted then? Because Galaxy Eyes was really popular in Japan too.
that is a fair question. That is, I have no response for that. We have a Galaxy type now in Gold Rush.
We do have a Galaxy type. That's true.
No, no Galaxy Eyes yet. But yeah, basically, if you look at the four main monsters, we have two monsters that fill the role of attackers. They are the main protagonist and its rival. They're going to be breaking boards. You have Prima Gitarda, which is like the essence of this is Rush. We're gonna summon a lot of monsters. I'm gonna take advantage of you playing Rush as Rush Duels. And then you have Yami Ruler, which is for the control players.
Also, to make people feel better about Prima Guitarna, there is a spell card that gives multiple monsters Pierce.
Yes, just saying, piercing and multiple attacks is gonna be paramount in this at the start of the game.
So the card I'm highlighting right now is called Powerful Pierce, and it lets you send one card from your hand to the graveyard. Then you choose two monsters on your field with the same level as each other, and if those monsters attack a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing damage. Uh, and this, oh man, this is gonna be terrible to edit. Like I'm gonna go behind. I'm just gonna literally like blow up all of these cards that I'm searching in the middle of onto the page, and
I think there's a deviant art somewhere that someone did all the English Rush Duel cards as a release.
it had to be on DeviantArt. That's like the worst site to go to.
It is. It is the worst site to be in ever, but
Okay, and
uh,
we need to talk about one other card because it's been leaked. And that one other
mhm.
card is Dion Kito the Boogie Master.
Yes.
So this is Mindy. Is her name Mindy? Her name is Mindy. Yeah. This is Mindy's card. It is Dion Kito the Boogie Master, level 8, 2500 attack, 1000 defense. It's a light aqua monster, and its requirement is that you send one card from your hand to the graveyard, and the effect is that you gain 1000 life points. So you literally get to Dion Kito the Cure Master every single turn.
Hmm.
And um, level 8 monsters are pretty rare in the early game. It's mostly level 7 monsters. So there are cards that care about levels, and for some monsters, a higher level is actually kind of a weakness because you can burn your opponent based on the level of the card, or you can lower their attack points based on the level of the card. And so I do think that since Dion Keto is the same attack points as Multi-Strike Dragon Regis, but it's a level higher, that's actually going to be a disadvantage for the most part in the early game.
Mm-hmm. And also mostly because here's the thing with this level. When I say levels matter, and it's not only because of the attack cap, it's how you're saying like levels matter because a lot of cards care about levels. But in Rush Duels, a lot of cards uh, affect monsters on the field based on their level. Uh, for example, Yemi Ruler, your opponent cannot summon level 7 or higher. A lot of cards are like destroy a level 8 or lower monster on the field.
Mhm.
So the higher the level, there's a level of protection the card has. A level 10 monster has a lot of inherent protections because a lot of cards in the game cannot affect it. But at the same time, they have these weaknesses. So levels matter a lot because it's kind of how the game balances itself out. It's a really clever design that they use for Rush Duels specifically.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the leaks and we talked about um, the
The
characters and the
the
cards that are
cards.
coming out. So next up is the elephant in the room, the rough one. Let's talk about how this is actually going to work.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions still lingering in the air. I do agree with you. People say that Rush is going to have its own currency. I think that's a little bit of cope.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot
I,
of
I
cope.
only I only have 3,000 gems right now. I'm so upset.
I have 4,000. I've been grinding this KC Cup to be ready. Um, but here's the thing. I think it's gonna be the same currency. I think they're going to each Rush Duel pack is going to have more cards than the normal Duel Links pack.
Mhm.
At least it has to be 6 or something.
Okay, so you think that we will have now are you saying that we're going to get more of the box with each pack that we open, so it'll be cheaper, or are you saying that there will be more cards in the box and therefore there will be more cards in the pack?
I think there's gonna be some balancing act they're gonna have. Because for me, the way to go about it is at least for the early boxes, to keep the size more or less the same, but give us more cards per pack, so we can use our gems to quickly build Rush Duel decks.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because I think that's ridiculous. So hold on.
It is a little bit ridiculous.
So let's
For
pull
me,
up.
it's the way to go at first.
Hold on. Let's pull up a box real quick. Okay, so this is 180 cards, and what you are saying is that you think that we will not increase the number of cards in the box, but we will get more cards per pack. That to me just doesn't make sense because look at how many URs we got, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so
Hmm.
Prima Gitarna, uh, Seven's Robe Magician, um, Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, and Yami Ruler. That's already half the box, and each
Yeah,
each
no.
each deck is 40 cards. I really don't think you can fit four 40 card decks into 180 cards. It's just like you would have to print basically no duds. No duds when you're introducing the deck. That just doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense to
no.
me. So,
That makes sense. Yeah, they're gonna have to release basically full packs from the real game
mhm. Now here's
in
what I'm
here.
thinking. Here's what I'm thinking they're gonna do. They could do what you're saying to try and get people to buy into it. They could say, okay, we're gonna give you a box that looks just like the old box. And it's gonna have 108 cards in it. But how we're gonna compensate that is the level ups instead of being 3 cards spread over each level up reward. we're going to give you each level up card is a 3 of. So like when you hit
That could
level
be good.
4, you get like 3 copies of one card, and then the next card that you would get is a different card that you get 3 copies of. That could be a way for them to compensate for the fact that the deck size is so much bigger.
That could be really cool because you're not that means you're not grinding. If they want to keep, for example, a legend as a reward, that could be the one-off.
Hmm.
For example, I don't think most legends will be rewards. Maybe the vanilla ones.
They could just put them in the card trader.
Yeah, actually, putting the legends in the card trader also makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So you can buy them individually with other resources.
And make them prismatic.
Oh yeah,
Oh, imagine the full card art like Blue Eyes, but you can make it prismatic like the day you get it.
I hope they do. I hope they do it justice. Uh, the main concern here is, and that is the thing that people, why so many people are of the school of it's gonna be a separate currency. Because if you're playing Duel Links for speed duels, how do you convince people to spend the same resource they've been saving for speed duels into rush duels? And I think it's just
You don't give them another choice. That's how you do it. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's basically what they're going to do. I think that
yeah,
that the deck that they're going to release, the box that they're going to release in September, is going to have 100% Rush Duel cards in it. There will not be a single Speed Duel card in it, and gems expire.
yeah, they're gonna force you to spend on it or have them expire.
Hmm. Exactly.
And the other thing people are the people of the school of another resource is missing. If they make rush duels cheap enough at the start, there's literally no reason to just spend those expiring gems on rush duels to try it out. Like just make it cheap, make it so you can have a reasonable deck, like what they're doing with BLS right now.
Hmm.
4,500 gems, and you have a mostly functioning Bloodlust Soldier deck.
That's fair.
If you do that for rush duels, spend like 5,000 gems, and suddenly you have a workable rush duel deck to try out in a new format, people are gonna try it out.
Another thing that we have to talk about, which I don't think a lot of people are really taking into consideration here, is the level 1. When you unlock a character, and we take this for granted because
Hmm.
the Duel Links game has advanced so far. But when you unlock a character, they come with a full deck. So when we unlock Yuga, he will have to have 40 cards as part of his individual collection that you get from unlocking him. Same with Luke, same with Roman, and same with Gavin.
Given they could, they don't give us the ace monsters with that, do they? No, they never did.
I mean, they did when we first opened. That's the other thing to think about. This is basically going to be DM for Rush Duels, so they could just be like, okay, well, we're going to make. I mean, they literally just did give us an event after who knows how long. Alito's unlock, one of Alito's drops was his ace monster, so they could do that. I mean,
Okay, so
when you unlocked Kaiba, you got Blue Eyes. So it is entirely possible because this is the first world and they want people to play the game that they just give you one copy of um, every ace monster um, when you unlock the character, and then like maybe you get like another copy as you level up, or maybe you get another copy from completing some sort of quest. I don't know.
it would be fun because the first starter decks that are released were the Yuga and the Luke starter decks.
Hmm.
And the thing that I like that they did is they each included their ace monster, one copy of Seven's Road for Yuga, one copy of Dragias for Luke, but every other card was at 3 copies.
Mm, okay.
They could give us for those two characters just their starter decks because they're not too strong but not too bad, and you're giving us one copy of the aces off the gate.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Um, all right, so uh, that's about all we can talk about for speculation. There's either going to be some new currency that we apparently have to get a whole lot of because we have to pay for 4 characters worth of decks with it when
Yeah.
this world drops, or we're going to use gems for both. And the other real big question is moving forward, not just when it releases. Moving forward, how are they going to handle multiple content? Are they going to give us? Is there going to be a KC Cup for Rush Duels? Are we going to have a KC Cup every month now? First month is a KC Cup for Speed Duels. Next month is a KC Cup for Rush Duels. Are we going to have like 2 KC Cups going on at the same time, both with gem drops? Are we gonna have to play twice as much ranked for every event now? Are they just gonna treat the 2 different ladders as the same and only give us half as many rewards if we're playing both formats? Um,
Not to mention just character interactions, like I said before. Will characters from previous series have rush skills, or are they gonna be in their own separate universe? Will they interact at all?
yeah, are you even
Will
gonna be able to go to the gate and go to and challenge Yami Yugi to a duel with Yuga, or is it just gonna say this character is not compatible? It's a completely different format. You can't even talk to them. Like that's it's there's a lot of questions. But okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll guess here. My
hmm
prediction is we are gonna have purely um, rush duel boxes and purely speed duel boxes, and the reason I think this is because if they mix them, it would be much worse.
Yeah, mostly because I agree with you there. Because imagine, okay, I don't want to play rush duels. I'm here only for speed duels. Then when you buy boxes, imagine pulling one UR with your 10 packs, and it's a rush duel UR.
Especially
That
if you paid money for it.
Yeah, especially if you put money into the game, it's like that is going to feel horrible. It's
Mhm.
just not gonna be a good experience. It's gonna appear out real soon. Just gonna hurt the game for both sides. I think separating the boxes is the smarter choice.
Yep. And then that's also like imagine if um they put like selection box cards in a rush duel like box. Like there's it's coming up to where we're expecting mind control is going to come to an actual box at some point. So
hmm
imagine if the January box, like the New Year box, is a rush duel box, and they're doing mixing. So they give us a rush duel focused box, and then in that rush duel focused box, we also have mind control and Ice Dragon's Prison. And like those are the only real speed duel cards in there. Like how
That
terrible would that feel?
that is going to suck. People, I don't think it's going to be to the level of people dropping out of the game, but it is going to be of the to the level of people not buying that product.
hmm So I do think that we're going to see a situation where they're going to release individual boxes. They're going to release rush duel boxes. They're going to release speed duel boxes. And the other question that people were having, well, are they going to release twice as many boxes now? No, I don't think so,
No,
because they don't have any reason to expect that people will pay more money for this new content, and so they're not going to spend more resources to give us more product. You would essentially be saying if they were going to print like boxes for both, that they would be
yeah,
working twice as hard and producing twice as much content for half the revenue because their player base isn't expanding. So even if their players spent the same amount of money that they were before on 2 separate boxes, unless they think that there will be enough players who would spend money on both boxes, on the Rush Duel box that they released and the Speed Duel box that they released, which would be the player spending more money than they did before, then they have no reason to work twice as hard and put in twice as many work hours because they're paying for that. So that would be a
no,
loss. And you might say, well, then they shouldn't put this app in another app. They should make their own game. And that's another argument entirely. And for the record, I do agree with that. I do think that I feel
I
like
do agree. I see the business decision of making it part of the Duel Links app.
Cross Duel was a terrible idea. and I feel like Cross Duel
Yeah,
really put Konami in a bad place. Um,
but I think what happened is because you have to remember that executives do not think like normal human beings sometimes.
mhm,
So what they thought was, so we released Master Duel, Cross Duel, and we have Duel Links. And what they thought happened fairly was that basically Master Duel and Duel Links being in competition from each other cannibalize any possible audience for Cross Duel. So releasing a third app is just gonna try to steal the audience from either Duel Links and Master Duel, so they don't want to separate their player base.
exactly. And I mean, that is the case. There are very few people who actually play both Master Duel and Rush and Duel Links every day.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's usually one or the other. I mean, you play Master Duel a lot more than you play Duel Links, and I play Duel
yes,
Links a lot more than I play Master Duel. Even though Speedroids is a much better deck in Master Duel, I just don't have the patience to do both, and I'm more interested in the anime aspect than I am in the competitive aspect.
yeah. I am just more. Uh, the thing I have with Duel Links, I love it as a format, and again, is I have the opposite reaction where Gravekeepers is a lot stronger in Duel Links than they are in Master Duel.
Yeah, but you don't have royal
Uh,
tributes.
but I don't have Royal Tribute. If we had it though. Um, but the issue I have here is mostly I grew up with the master rule
Mhm.
of Yu-Gi-Oh! So Speed Duel is what I like it. Uh, I don't know, doesn't feel right to me sometimes. But regardless of that, I understand the decision of okay, if we put it in Duel Links, everyone that already plays Duel Links will be exposed to it and be more likely to try it because you don't have to download a new app. We can use the same resources. We already have money on the app. You can just spend it differently. I see the business choice. I don't know if I agree because I can see it being a nightmare to implement. I am so sorry for the developers of this game right now.
There was you want to talk about okay, so we were talking about like a new currency being cope. I saw someone on the Reddit say that he thinks that Rush Duel packs should be purchasable with gold. I'm just like,
Fuck
bro,
no.
bro. I said that
That is
I was hoping when I saw that Alita was coming to the game. I said that I hoped Ring Announcer would be a drop, and I was not coping as hard as this guy was.
gold. I have okay. I do not play Duel Links as hard. I only pop in for KC Cups occasionally, and every now and again I try to go for COG, but I end up falling behind.
Mhm.
I have, without trying, almost 400,000 gold.
Yeah, gold is like I do think that they should do something with gold to make it more like a resource that you actually care about, but packs is not the answer.
No, how expensive does a pack have to be for spending gold to be a thing you consider?
Mm.
Like 100,000 gold a pack?
Like okay, what if it was like 5,000 gold a pack? Because then, I mean, because we do have a lot of gold, but it's only one pack. So like how much? Like 40. If you have 400,000 gold, it's 5,000 gold each. That's what? That's 80 packs.
That's 80
Okay,
packs.
that doesn't sound too bad. You would run out like, but there are people who have max gold, so like,
Yeah,
and you
no,
get gold so fast.
so fat. No, I just don't see gold being used. Gold is gonna be a non-resource until they figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which for me, it should be uh maybe a I still think Duel Links, the only thing Duel Links is missing comparing to Master Duel is some sort of crafting system.
Okay, but before we get to that, can we
Yeah,
just
but that's
take a
different.
moment to agree that the colored keys are the dumbest thing?
They are. They are the worst thing Duel Links has.
just I
And
have all these black keys. Just let me duel whoever I want.
it, uh, I don't know. Duel Links has a lot of resource problems. That's another thing why I'm not of the school of a third resource for Rush, because we already have so many. We have keys, we have tickets, we have gems, we have gold.
Oh man,
We have chips.
imagine if Konami goes like 100% the other direction, and not only do we have new gems, we also have new keys, and
No, fuck
we have
that.
to start collecting new keys to start
Fuck
farming
that.
the Rush Duel characters.
Like I said, I think if you want to make Rush Duels accessible out of the gate, you make it easy to build decks out of the gate.
Yeah.
Just make the decks accessible, ready to play. And the one thing that occurred to me way back that I'm bringing it now, because I do hope they do it. I hope Sevens has its own vagabond and is the protagonist from the Switch game.
Oh man, that would be so hype. But you
I
can see his
hope
face.
you can, but I hope he is the vagabond equivalent.
That'd be pretty cool. Because he has his
'Cause,
own voice and his own voice lines. It'd be
yeah,
nice. What would they
for
call
those
him?
who don't know, those who don't know, the Switch game character is an actual character in the anime as well. He has his own voice, face. I think his name.
He's not really a character. It's a cameo in one episode, but
Yeah, he's
yeah,
a cameo, but he exists in the universe. He's not like the vagabond that
he
is
is
kind
he
of
is
like
canon.
red. Yeah, he's canon.
All right.
Uh,
Okay. So let's. I've had this screen up for ages. Let's get into it. Okay. So there have been some leaks of potential drops for the gates. So we have Ansler the Magical Swordsman. This is going to be an SR 100%.
mm-hmm.
Well, actually, could this be a UR? I guess this could be a UR.
I mean, may if
Remember
it is
that
an
like
AUR,
remember that the at the early game, Axe Raider was a UR in Duel Links at one point.
fair. I think it's gonna be one of those. If it is a UR, it's gonna drop to SR later.
No, because it's a drop. It doesn't change. They're bad UR drops.
Fair. If it's a drop, yeah, that makes sense to make it a UR. There's no reason not to. Um, much like early Yu-Gi-Oh, one tribute monsters with high attacks are really good.
Okay, so so let's back up for a second. So this is a level 6 with 2,000 attack points, and Chrome is saying that is high attack. That is technically true. Ansler the Magical Swordsman has pretty high attack for a level 6 monster, which is pretty terrible, sadly. But that's Rush Duels for you.
Yeah, and keep in mind that it is a spellcaster. That is important distinction here.
Yes, ignore the giant two-handed sword that takes up half the card art. This is a spellcaster. Uh,
Yes,
2,000 attack, 500 defense, level 6. This is going to be one of Yuga's drops. He summons it like once in the anime, but it's a card that's like used all the time in his actual like people who play his cards because it's a fire monster, which he cares about elements, of course, and then it's also got pretty high attack.
hmm
Um, and then we have Hydra Magician, much more typical of a tribute monster in Rush Duels. Level
hmm
5 with 1,700 attack and 1,500 defense is a water monster. Oh, and by the way, I didn't say any effect for Ansler the Magical Swordsman. That is because it doesn't have an effect. This is a normal. And so is Hydra Magician. So we're looking at a just a straight up worse card than Ansler the Magical Swordsman, but you're going to run both of them. And that's why, because it's a water
Yep,
monster and because it's level 5, so you're going to care about that for right across. So,
and you're also gonna care about it because level 4 monsters only go to 1500 at most. So this card, despite being kind of bad, still kind of good.
we'll see. Speaking of level 4s with 1500, we got Dark Sorcerer, level 4 spellcaster with 1500 attack and 0 defense. So this is another Yuga drop. Um,
And you're gonna be running 3 of these.
oh yeah, this card is going to be like a staple.
hmm
Then we have Mystic Dealer. Finally, we have an effect monster. Level 3, a water monster spellcaster. Requirement, discard a spellcaster. Effect, draw a card. That's really good. So you get
That
to
is
cycle of.
Mystic Dealer is one of the better early cards of the game
Yeah,
because
getting
the
this
way
card
you
for
play
free is
it,
fantastic. Because I think this would be a UR in a box.
it will be how you are in the box. Because legit, the way you work is normal summon it. Imagine if you have the Hydro guy in your hand, you don't want, you also have the Pyro spellcaster with 2k. You discard the Hydro, draw a new card that you can possibly use, and then immediately tribute it. He's not gonna stick around.
And remember, there's no searching. So it's not like
No,
this. Like Mystic Dealer is like the equivalent of Stratos. It's like drawing a card, drawing one card. That's good enough to be like a Stratos.
that is good enough. We are eventually gonna be having an upgraded version of him, but for a while he's gonna be the goat, especially in spellcasters.
Well, only in Spellcaster because his requirement is to send a Spellcaster type monster.
Yeah, I mean, especially because spellcaster dragon is a thing.
All right, so now we have Dragorite. This is going to be one of Luke's cards. Level 4 Earth Dragon with 1500 attack and 0 defense. And by the way, Earth Dragons don't make any sense. I will say this.
No,
I firmly state this card has wings.
not only that. I mean, Earth dragons make sense if they're like the dragon ruler one, but this one, he's shining with purple flames. He's shining with light. Why is this not a light attribute? I don't know.
Yeah, and Luke doesn't care about attributes anyway, so all of his monsters should just be fire, in my opinion.
Yeah,
All right, Dragon Sage, yet again a card that changes its attribute for no reason because Luke doesn't care about it. Level 3 Water Dragon with 1100 attack and 100 defense. Literally no benefit to running this card over Dragorite, but you will do so anyway because you need a bunch of tribute fodder. And this is it. This is the game. It is a bunch of vanillas that you play just to get them out of your hand so that you can immediately tribute them for cards you actually care about, like Fire Dragon and Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius.
and let's remember, you're also gonna play all of these terrible cards.
Mm-hmm.
Not only a tribute fodder, but if you don't draw your big monsters, dragons and spellcasters have very good cards that need dragons on the field. So you may leave this up in face-up attack position regardless,
Or discard to play Dragon's Pressure. All right,
or discard. Yeah,
Dragon's Bat, or no, Dragon Bat, level 3 with 1000 attack and 0 defense. I'm actually going to read the flavor text for this card because it's pretty great. Even scholars argue whether this mysterious creature is a bird or a beast. When flying in swarms, they somewhat resemble dragons, so it is possible that's what they are.
I'm just gonna say I love the artwork for this card. I'm so sad that it's just a vanilla.
Yeah, it's a vampire bat dragon. It looks great. Okay, and then we have Twin Edge Dragon. Finally, another effect monster. This is the Mystic Dealer for dragons. Discard a card. This card can attack twice this turn. It's got 1000 attack and 0 defense. Um, and fun fact, Luke used 2 of these in his first duel and nearly OTK'd Yuga with it.
Mm-hmm. Because again, the strategy here. Think about it. You have Dragias that can clear the field for you if the opponent only has 2 monsters, and then you just go in for 4,000.
Yep, with the 2 Twin Edge. Yeah, so. All right. So those are the cards that we have confirmed in the game. We've covered all of them except I think that there's also a skill for Dark Magician Girl, and Blue Eyes.
I
Uh,
think the one thing I'm gonna say, also getting a little bit ahead of myself. We have the big spellcaster guys. I find it odd that we're missing the big dragon guys. The 2100 dragon, level 6, I think he was.
I mean, that's probably going to be like a box card.
Probably gonna be a box card, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let's see. Sparks, Blue Medicine, Seal of the Ancients, and Hammer Crush have all been leaked as skills as well. Um, Sparks is the same as the normal game. Burn your opponent for 200. There is a card that cares about Sparks. It is not a good
Hmm.
card. Blue Medicine, gain 400 life points. You use this in Psychics. There is a Psychic monster that cares about Blue Medicine, and it actually it can actually set all copies of Blue Medicine from your graveyard. And in
Yeah.
the anime, Roman actually used that effect to regain another 1200 life points in the same turn that she gained 1200 life points, and she still lost.
And I'm gonna say this as well.
Mhm.
I don't know much about it because I searched information about this card, but apparently early on in Rush Duels, Blue Medicine was a legit deck that people played. There was a deck called Blue Medicine.
All right.
And Tomato Source, when he was looking through skills, he was impressed with skill 11.
Okay.
He just said blue medicine decks are gonna be insane for a while. I was like, I don't know what that means.
All right. Then we have Seal the Ancients, which works exactly like it does in the real game. Pay 1,000 life points, look at all face down cards on your opponent's field, and then return them back face down. Um,
Thanks.
this does okay. So Seal the Ancients does because trap cards do have requirements. It does allow you to just literally evade traps. So it is kind of better than in the regular game, but still not something you would want to use a skill on. Maybe you put it in your psychic deck because you need to get below a certain life point threshold.
Yeah, but I imagine we're gonna have better skills for that.
All right, Hammer
Uh,
Crush is 100% an SR. This
yeah,
card this card is so good, and yet it's such tax. So it is a spell card. It requires you to send a card from your hand to the graveyard to destroy one spell or trap on your opponent's field, and um, there is a spellcaster version of this that does not require you to discard a card, and it only requires you to control a spellcaster. And then there is a dragon version of this, which only requires you to control a dragon. So literally, the dragons and spellcaster decks, not only do they have a better version of Hammer Crush, there is nothing that stops them from running both that card and Hammer Crush. So they will have better spell and trap removal and more spell and trap removal, along with
yeah,
having better spells and traps to remove.
that's why um, spellcaster and dragons and the mix of both are going to dominate the meta for a while. So you should invest in those. I keep saying
Yep.
everyone should invest in those cards
Ugh.
if they care about competitive dueling anyway.
All right. Well, we talked about the differences. We talked about the cards that we think are going to come out. We talked about the characters, and we talked about all the questions about how the app is going to integrate. And we talked about the skill leaks. Chrome, do you have anything else?
Well, for one, I think just for a closing argument, a closing sentence, more or less. The thing about Rush Duels coming to Duel Links is just think of this as a way to once again, because this is something people don't realize. Duel Links used to be the same as what Speed Duels is doing in the physical releases. A way to go back and enjoy old Yu-Gi-Oh! Enjoy how the game used to be played, how the game used to feel. Duel Links has come to a point where it's no longer that really, because we already have all the mechanics. We are starting to see meta that is not that old in comparison to other things. Like people forget that when Duel Links first released, the meta was water. Like that was insane to me. So think of Rush Duels once again as going back to Playground Yu-Gi-Oh for a little bit, to Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh with a bit of a twist to make it faster and make it feel more like the Yu-Gi-Oh you used to watch on the anime. Like, and I say this because a lot of people get turned off by the new art style, the new story, the new characters. Give this game a chance because just remember, when Synchros were released, that was the end of Yu-Gi-Oh, and everyone was gonna drop it. When XYZ released, that is when they jumped the shark. When Pendulums released, that was stop it. Just enjoy the game. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Chrome. I really appreciate you coming out. For everyone who is interested in more Chrome content, you can join the Guild of Gurus Discord server and locate him at his
Hmm.
personal channel, Sacred Burial Grounds.
Come over and bother me all you want. I answer all questions, Gravekeepers, and Crystal Beast on the side.
This is Serafi. I was thrilled to have you all with me.